everybody. I am Andra Annette and I am here with Lorilet and Monegro. And we are Soul's Code. So she said, where did we leave off last time? 'Cause I said, we're going to pick up where we left off last time. So we were talking about that if you Google the top 10 drugs used in America, that it kind of looks like they're trying to kill us because they're used for heart
Sorry that I'm
disease.
laughing.
So they're used for heart disease, they're used for depression, obesity, kidney issues, things like that. And all of those drugs have side effects and cause blood dyscrasias and all kinds of other ailments in your body. So she was saying that, we're not paranoid, but it does kind of look that way. And she said it in a nonchalant way, but it's true. So that's what I want to talk about today. So um
The thing is, I don't like to set panic, but there's a reasoning to all my craziness. Like they say, there's
no,
a
but
reason
it's
to the
not
madness.
panic. It's not panic. So, I am out here helping with health, right? And unfortunately, because a lot of the systems that we depend on have brainwashed most of America that they need these things, it's hard for me to do my job because people think now they could just go on Google and get a medical answer. And Google is regular human beings without medical degrees giving advice based on their assumptions, their beliefs, or what they've been taught. It doesn't make it so. So you do need credible sites and places that you can go to get that research, right? But where I'm really going with this is I've been looking at some of the biggest funders for like the school lunch programs and you know that really donate a lot of money to these health organizations, and they're primarily their biggest donors are companies like Nabisco and Coca-Cola. And I think it's great that they're donating to all of these things, but that kind of gives them an incentive to have their stuff front and center. So if you're donating billions of dollars to a hospital, right? Or a research, the research is not going to say that the people that are paying for that research are causing illness and death. They're not going to say sugar is bad and this is, you know. So I was looking into really how food gets into the market. I was like, well, how do they decide what goes on the shelves? So you have an A box and you have a B box. This one's full of colorful sugar, food coloring and chemicals and additives and sugars. And this one is all natural. So they put them out into the market, and the one that sells the most, the sugary, chemical ridden one, is the one that goes and stays on the shelves because the primary drive is to sell products, right?
Mhm.
It so when I'm looking into these things, I'm like, wow, so I mean, I know things have gotten really bad, but there is an incentive to keep these sugary processed. So on my own show, The Journey Home, I was talking about addiction with chemicals and stuff like that. Is food an addiction? Well, if it's ultra processed and you've been eating it sugar for 30 years, I would say that it's just as addictive as alcohol or anything else.
Mhm.
That food
Absolutely.
addiction is a real addiction. So, uh, we need to start shaking things up because we are contributing to the illness. We're in a position where we can say no. I saw on the news the other day that a woman is suing like a hair straightening company because it has chemicals in it that could be linked to cancer, but it's not on the label. And I was just baffled by that. That someone that was straightening their hair, I mean, those fumes alone are toxic,
Mhm,
wouldn't realize that that was having some kind of effect on their health
mhm.
just because it didn't label it. So even though these companies really should have an ethical responsibility to say that these, if inhaled for long periods of time can be toxic over long periods of time, even though they should have it, we have a certain responsibility to look at what we're putting in our body and on our body and in our environment. And we've kind of gotten very lazy in that aspect. And what they're selling as food today really isn't food at all. It's ultra processed chemicals that we're eating.
Yes. Um, yeah, the thing that people need to start thinking about is that eating is a process whereby we get nutrition. We do not eat, although many people think that's what the reason to eat, for pleasure. That's not the reason. That's a secondary benefit that we may get. But really, feeding is a process for us to repair our body, for us to basically renew ourselves,
Mm.
right? It's like we have in our bodies cells that need to be nourished. And whenever we're consuming food, if we're eating a lot of processed food, what I see the problem is that people just eat to eat. And let me just put something in my stomach. No, your stomach has a whole bunch of cells and enzymes and all kinds of things that are going to take whatever you put in there and break it down so that it's processed. So your body's like a processing center. And people now are consuming things that are very empty in value, in nutritional value, that is. And people are putting into their bodies all kinds of harmful substances that were not part of the repertoire when my grandma was alive. And people are also putting into their bodies a frequency of needing to eat high volumes because of the actual nutritional density of what they're having is so low, so poor, so bad that our bodies are starving even though we're eating. So we're overeating because the body is simply not empowered to feel well, to feel healthy, to feel fulfilled. And so we need to really start thinking about this sickening cycle. It's not so much that we've become addicted, it's that the body is starving. You have a whole bunch of flab and fat as a
I
result,
just I just had this
as a result of
conversation.
this,
I
you
went on
know?
Facebook and I told everybody, "Hello,
And no fat shaming. I want to make
I'm
sure this
100."
doesn't, but
No,
I
it
want to make
wasn't
sure this
fat
doesn't come,
shaming.
I want to make sure this doesn't become, because people get on
This
a
is
high
not
horse
fat
agenda,
shaming.
but no,
Be-
but I want to make sure this is very clear. What I'm saying is that the end result of that process that I've just described is fat and flab. Not that we are looking to have it, and not that if you have it, you're a bad person or you're this or you're that. No, by all means, love every single piece of you. That's the number one thing you got to do. But the truth of the matter is, that's not how you are in your original state. So we have to go and wonder, do you want to love your cells and feed them properly? That's really number one reason to eat. The number one reason to eat is because you want to gain energy, you want to be nutritional, you want to be in,
people are emotionally attached to food, and people need to see food as molecules, substances, whatever it is. When I eat this molecule, it creates this short fat, chain at short. It's tired. I'm tired. but it
Chain
creates this.
reaction.
When I eat this, it creates this. When I eat A, it does B, right? You know, short chain fatty acids. I couldn't get that out of my mouth for nothing. Um, so but people are not getting that. So when I went on Facebook the other day, I was telling them that we're in a very sad state in health, that America can do better. And that we used to be a
Yeah.
very high functioning country, and we've really lost the ability to be that world power because we're not taking care of ourselves, and that we're suffering from something called cell dysregulation. And what you were talking about in that fat is exactly what's happening in the body, because the cells
Yes.
get so overnutrition is one of the biggest causes of cell dysregulation. Okay. And what happens is
I
the
guess
cells,
overfeeding it, not necessarily that it has nutritional value, because I want to make sure.
but that's the technical name for it,
Right, I get it. I get
overnutrition.
it.
So what happens is the cells are loaded with fat. That's what happens. And then they can't break down that sugar. And the
Yeah,
mitochondria makes ATP, which is your energy source for every vital function that's going on in your body, right?
we
But
need it.
then it can't do that because it can't break down the other sugar coming in. It can't break it down, right? So what happens is you have all this sugar circulating in the blood,
Mhm.
and what sugar likes to do is attach to large proteins like the collagen in your skin and in your blood vessels that start hardening. So is this really a good thing? No, it's not.
It's not.
So it's a shit show is what it is. And people don't understand that 30% of children today, adolescents, are obese. Okay?
Yeah.
They are suffering from something called non-alcoholic fatty liver. And they're having transplants and everything else because of this. And this is very serious for a child of 15 to be having fatty liver. So we
Yes.
do need to start to look at the disease process and where this is going for the health and wellness of America,
Mhm.
because we are the contributors. We are buying these foods, and there are other foods available. So people say, oh, eating organic is expensive. There's lots of ways to eat well and not eat organic, truthfully.
Right. Like eating for nutrition would require us to be mindful, but also at the same time, when you think about the fact that unused food in the system, meaning calories, the food that you eat that is not used by the body, that energy isn't turned into energy. It definitely will become that sugar that becomes the fat that kind of creates this vicious cycle of sorts. But we also have systematically just done away with the ability to have leisure time, the ability to have schedules that allow people to go out for just walk and relax. Even in schools, when you're talking about budget cuts, what gets cut off, the gyms and the music and the sports and the all kinds of things. So we have a real, I'm going to say it's like stacking and compounding issues upon issues upon issues. And this is why when I was saying that, hey, maybe this is like an act of war, we don't see it, but it's like we're being brought to the death, right? The death of the future of America, if you will, by this process that we're partaking in,
I
right?
agree.
Because it's almost like between the meds, the medications that we're having, and the way we are eating and the lifestyle, right? These things that we're not able to do, we are really looking at an inner kind of almost pharmaceutical, biological type of inner warfare that makes no sense to the benefit of American people. I don't see the benefit in all of the conglomerate.
There is no benefit. And when you look at the healthcare system as a whole, it's broken. So, I'm in Western and I'm in Eastern. Western is at this stage in my life, I've been in it a long time. It's so that I can keep my eye on what's new and what's happening. But I mean, I've seen the best doctors and I've seen the worst doctors, you know. I've seen a doctor see a patient three times over the same lab. Order it one day, right? Come in to see the patient when the results are there, and then order a follow-up lab if it was off by a point, all for one lab. So three labs and three visits and bill for those, um, for a chem panel, which is ridiculous, right? So, and that's kind of why everything is so crazy because doctors spend all these years in school, and then they might have the best intentions going in that they're going to be a part of something fantastic, but healthcare has become a business. So if the orthopedist is doing surgery, they get paid more money for surgeries. If you're fixing, I don't know, a rotacuff, he's going to bring more money to that hospital if he's prescribes a pain medicine, right?
Mm.
So, so they get paid and bring money to the hospital based on the surgeries, the ICD codes, all
Right.
those things that are added, and they're more geared towards symptom. Nobody's looking at the root cause anymore,
Mhm. It's all
they're
management.
doing surgeries that are caused like basic sinus surgeries that are caused from inflammation. So they're going in, they're opening them up, and they're cleaning out maybe the nasal cavity or whatever, but they're not looking at what caused that inflammation, because
Right.
you're seeing systemic inflammation if it's here, right?
Right.
Right. Um, Probably likely, right? So if you look at your labs, you'll see by the lymphocytes, or the white blood cells, if the inflammation is acute or chronic, you'll be able to see that, right?
I mean,
So, but they're not looking for the root causes anymore. They're just treating the symptoms.
we, America, to find a way forward, to be honest with you, would have to switch the model to a model that rewards health. We have a model that rewards sickness. And because of that,
We
we
don't
are,
reward sickness.
well, basically, people get paid the sicker you are. That's why
Yes,
it's like
no, so
reward,
the incentives are
you know.
wrong. The
So that's why,
incentives are wrong. We are
that's what I'm
worth
saying.
more to people sick
Right.
than we are healthy.
So that's exactly where I'm going with this. If we switch the model where a person as a client, you are worth more because you're healthier and your numbers are better, everybody will be pushing a different agenda. Here, I need you to go work out. Here, I need you to eat well. Here, I need you to, because now you get paid based on healthy clients, not sicker clients that get 500,000 meds and or get 500,000 procedures. And it's so crazy because they figure, oh, but that would put us out of business. No, Sonny, people have a degenerative process regardless. It's like a normal bell curve. We are out of the bell curve, okay? We're abnormal on that bell curve. And I don't care, I'm not no scientist here, but I guarantee you we are abnormal on that bell curve because human processes of being alive, we have a lifespan. So it doesn't matter. We don't have to go manipulating, doing all these evil things for the sake of getting money. People are going to get sick. People are still going to die. People are still going to age. People are still going to degenerate. So this idea that you have to go around making these horrible decisions because the CEOs need to make $30 million a year is quite a sick mentality.
I agree with you 100%. I don't know that America's on our page yet,
I don't know if
but
they're on that page, but I wish,
but you
Lord,
need
they
to
get
get
to
in the
that
book.
page.
You need to get in the book at least. Because listen, I've been in healthcare a long time, and I love what I do. Like I'm not responsible for ICD codes. But and this is an absolute truth. I remember when they started paying more for patients that had Alzheimer's. And I was doing geriatrics back then. And all of a sudden, everybody on the unit had dementia. And I was like, and I said to, even said to one of the doctors, and he went like this to me. He said, "That's what they're asking us to do." I said, "But how could you do that?" I said, "Because that lady's more together than you are. She's got more wherewithal than both of us combined."
Right. This is again, this is what I'm saying. It just
But
breeds
I
corruption.
wasn't putting that on.
Right.
I
But it
wasn't put,
breeds corruption, right? It
but
it
yes, so,
creates
but
and
that's
it
why
destroys people's lives. People become just
that's
these
why,
numbers.
but that's why you don't attach your name to that. So,
Oh,
um,
absolutely.
so he said, I don't know what this new thing is, but that, that they're saying that this is regulated. I said, okay. I said, imagine that her husband says she's unfit to take care of her finances now that she has dementia. And then he takes off and leaves her with nothing. Who's going to pay the bill here, Doc? So I gave him something to think about. I said, because you just said she's demented and she doesn't have it. And I said, you know, but people don't think like that. But, and that wasn't the first time I saw something that was really out of line. You know, I worked with a social worker, and when I tell you, we went to bat for a lot of patients based on things like that. But there are things like this that are happening every day. So you can speak up and say whatever you want, but because you're entitled to your opinion, you're not going to get fired for your opinion. But people that create waves are not looked on nicely either. And it's not going to change the system. So there was a point where I had to decide to leave that place because it wasn't serving me. I needed to be able to live.
Right. Well, that's where, also our own ability to be ethical in our own
And
engagement,
morally correct.
and be
So
like,
you make a
this is,
decision. This isn't working for me. If
yeah.
this is
Oh, well, this is why I'm very like, um, I don't mingle with everybody for that same reason because you know what? If I realize and I'm aware of it, I am going to have a conversation about that and be open about it. I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, nothing's happening. Nope. Nope. We're going to have a conversation. I'm going to go to my immediate supervisor. It's going to go, whatever chain we got to do this, we will do it. Only because you are free to do whatever you want, but you're not going to make me do what I know I'm not supposed to do. So it's almost like, we're
that's
all
what it
called to
comes.
this, to these kinds of conversations that are tough. They're tough because you know what? People are being forced to do these kinds of things. This is where these doctors that come in with their great, beautiful ideas that they're going to save the world, and then Big Pharma tells them, no, you're not. You're going to medicate the world. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, I'm not going to heal anybody. No, Sonny, you can't be healing people here now. You can't even use the word healing in medical circles.
But
You're
it's
a quack
very
if you
it's
heal people.
but it's very
Oh,
sad, and a lot of them are in debt. They owe, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's hard for them to break out on their own practice. So,
yes,
but they do have a moral compass, a lot of them, and they do what's right. But a lot of things are left out. Like, it just baffles me that a doctor who is
yeah,
supposed to be educating people on health doesn't have to know nutrition.
they
One of the
don't.
cornerstones,
They got to know pharma.
and now I'm not suggesting that he be a fitness trainer or a dietitian, but he should have a basic knowledge of the things that he's teaching and how they work on the body. Because they're telling people, oh, even when you have hypertension, they're giving you a pill. They're not telling you,
That's
listen, you
right.
really need to cut your fat. You really need to lower your salt
Right.
intake because these things all go together. So they should be able to have that conversation, not
Yes.
that, okay, I'm going to give you this pill,
Mm,
it's bizarre.
that's the
So I mean,
model.
I had someone that I was working with, and she was complaining that she was a little overweight, right? But what she did was she went to the doctor and he had wanted to put her on some medication. I think her cholesterol was a little high or whatever. And she said, well, let me think about it. I'm going to try and eat better and I'll get back to you. So she did take off like 40 pounds or whatever. And she was very, very fit. She wasn't unfit to begin with. Maybe it was just the types of food she was eating, right? Um,
Mhm.
because every culture has different variances in diet, right? Some are
Absolutely.
higher fat or so. Um, but she was reasonably healthy and she's a very tall woman, so she didn't look fat even when she thought she was. But she went back to the doctor and he said, "What did you do?" She said, I changed my diet, and he said, "Oh, I don't think that was it." She said, "Really?" Because that's all I did. But like he was trying to argue with her that that wasn't the reason why. That may he Oh, that's what happened. He insisted that his numbers must have been wrong, that the lab must have been wrong.
Well, it would have been wrong then to medicate too. And that's the
Correct.
big problem.
Correct.
When a person can't even have faithfulness in a result that they're doing, but yet they're quick to medicate. So it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to kind of process as a way of how we approach health. And the fact that, I really want that to sink in, that you cannot speak of healing in the medical world. It's like the weirdest thing that you cannot talk about how alternative medical care, a form of care, whether that be self care or self care practices, how they enhance a positive outcome in a patient. And all of a sudden that's dismissed. And I don't know how we have become so separated from not only our brain, our bodies, our feelings, and our thoughts and our spirit. I have no idea how we've become so disjointed in our
Because there's so
perception of the
many,
self. It's so
well,
weird.
because I mentioned this the other day that we have doctors go to school for all these years and then they're taught to pick a specialty. So basically you have to know the whole body but niche down. So it's not cool because things are, if you have a doctor that's a general practitioner but he's working on the feet now, he decided to be a podiatrist, then he can't have conversations with you about the other stuff because it's no longer in his wheel well. Just like, if you go to a foot doctor and your hand's bothering you, he can't look at your hands, right? So unfortunately, things are missed.
Right.
Even though they have the knowledge, they're cornered into or boxed into only speaking about this one thing.
But you'd be
And
surprised. Sometimes you go for one thing and all of a sudden they want to operate on you. Like,
I know.
so I'll tell you, I don't know that they really stick to that. But I wish there were more conversations around, uh, training, preventative care, more of a positive approach to how our well-being is sought in the medical world. Um, because we are what we eat. Don't tell me that if I eat a whole bunch of junk, I'm healthy as hell. No, those two don't go together. Eat junk and be 100% healthy. No, just like, we're a combination of different factors. I may be eating well, but how about if I'm super stressed? Or how about if I'm going through such an emotional turmoil in my life? And how about if my
Then you're
mindset
you're
is
not
not
well.
okay? Right. And so this is where I feel we have to start having more integrative medicine and, kind of start shifting. I feel like we're at a pivot point in this country where we can no longer keep acting as if nothing is going on. The ship is sinking. It's like the Titanic is sinking, and we're playing the violins. There's nothing to see here. Let's one more song, you kind of attitude. And when we need to actually hit on the brakes right now and really clean up our act. I really feel this is impacting everything. It impacts mental health care. It impacts well-being, school
It impacts
productivity,
everything. It's all connected.
everything.
Your mental, your emotional, and your physical is all connected because if you're not eating well, then you're not giving the nutrients to the other parts of the bodies. Those neurotransmitters and those feel good hormones, the serotonin and the dopamine and all that stuff, they're not
Nothing,
working.
they're
It's
not working.
affecting that too. They're not working properly. Something's getting disconnected in here. And that's why we have so many people that are on antidepressants and all this stuff. It's affecting everybody. And I mean, let's face it, it's the trajectory of where we're going in health. And there's so many more people out here teaching to the health. Now, I am glad about one thing. Doctors are more apt to discuss other modalities now. They will suggest, maybe doing a yoga class or, something, right? To get physically active or to do things where before they weren't, and now they're considering more modalities, right? They have more of an open mind. And we have to start looking at it, because this is an all hands on deck. So I don't care if you're doing yoga. I don't care, if you're a fitness pro 101. But we need everybody to come together and get on the
Yes.
same page. So if you're teaching EFT over here and you're teaching yoga over here, we need all of these people, right? Really
Yeah.
coming together and helping to create a better environment for ourselves. Because if we don't say, okay, enough's enough, because if you're going to keep going to those stores and keep purchasing those things, knowing that they're causing sickness and death,
Yep.
then you're consuming them. And there are choice. It is about choice. So I think that a lot of things are snuck into our foods. If you read those labels, there's 57 different names for sugar on those labels.
Why the lack of transparency? And this is
but
what
but
I'm
that's what
saying. It
I'm
all needs to
saying.
stop. Like it needs to stop for the simple reason that, yes, I don't know. There was once upon a time when none of this nonsense existed. None of it existed. And we
A
need to get
hundred
back
years ago,
to we need to
a
get
hundred
back to
years ago.
normal foods, not foods that have some derivative of some toxic stuff that now my body's forced to
Look at me
process,
with my big bottle of
you
water.
know?
Um, but do you want to know an interesting fact? 1 in 3 women in America has a cesarean. 1 in 3. Do you want to know what's wrong with that picture? Do you know how your gut, do you know how your gut microbiome is formed? As you travel through the birth canal, you're covered in an invisible sheath of microorganisms, healthy organisms from your mother. And as you get expelled out, you swallow that. In that push, it gets lodged in, well, I don't know if you swallow it, but it does make its way into your large intestine, where it becomes that 3 pounds enteric brain, and it continues to grow. And that's how we become that 90% organism and 10% human, because it just continues to grow and grow and grow. So,
You know what
um,
I'm thinking about?
so, so
Isn't
people,
it the
well,
SCOBY?
listen, let me finish. So people that are having cesareans, the first thing they're exposed to is whatever microorganisms are in the hospital ER where they're having that child. So there's a difference. So this little fact puts people at a 25% chance higher rate for diabetes, heart disease, and obesity, just by having a cesarean birth.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they're pushed,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
set.
And there are many more issues around this whole thing. Not only that, also breastfeeding. We have a whole bunch of kids with dental issues, and so many of them no longer have the same structural formation that they